listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. Now, the largest new media platform on the web and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Real Housewives of New Jersey After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Real Housewives of New Jersey After Show.
Listen to the music.
Life is short.
For the last time.
I have no time for drama.
Episode 20.
Yes.
20 episodes.
20 episodes. Bing is for doing, and we are here doing another episode of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 5. This is the episode 20, the reunion part 2. As you heard just there a second ago, the Housewives are doing their little taglines. We will be giving you our taglines at the end of this recap.
Stay tuned.
So you can hear what we would, if we were housewives, what we would say.
I'm exhausted with this season. How do you feel? How do you feel that it's all said and done?
Okay, it's all over. You did make a good comment. I'm going to steal it from you that it was 20 long episodes of the same storyline. And I feel like, honestly, that's a valid statement, Grant, because this fight with the Judices, the Judices, or however they're pronouncing it these days, and the Gorgas, yes, it's interesting. It has been going on for a really long time, which is why I feel that this season, they really tried, I don't know if it's production or what have you, to push that fight to go away. And in my opinion, I don't genuinely think that Melissa and Joe and Teresa and Joe are done with it. They're still so and I think that's maybe time will heal that. But I think the reason why I feel that way is I feel like the production side of this show pushed that storyline to go away because it's been dragging.
See, I disagree a little bit. If they were really pushing to go in a different direction, they would have added somebody or tried to fabricate something. But this was the same thing. And when you look at these reunions, it boils everything down to the main points of the season. And what did we discuss? Teresa and her husband.
Okay.
For 2.5 hours.
I agree, but I feel like without closure on Teresa, Joe, and Melissa, they can't just interject somebody else. Like, they need to close that argument, and then next season I feel like they will bring somebody to distract from it. I agree with that, but I feel like the viewers want an answer, so they're pushing along the argument to be over, whereas I don't know that any of them really want it to be.
Yeah,
I just don't genuinely believe that they are like, we're friends now. I mean, it just came out again. Like, they ended the season feeling like, okay, everybody's better now, and Teresa and Joe are hugging and their brother and sister again, and then you get them on the couches, and it's like not the same thing.
And there we go again with the producer. And the production team being just like, it's just so overproduced because these people have nothing resolved. And I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. But it's just going back to the same common thread throughout this whole season is just how contrived it all is.
Well,
it's really hard to sit through now.
And I agree with you, and I think that the reason why I feel like this argument between, the Gorgas and the Judices has been pushed to come to a close is we even saw it through, and you commented a lot on this, Grant. It was very observant of you to, like, these trips that were, like, made up to, like, heal and, like, let's go to Adirondacks and let's go to Arizona, and, like, they didn't feel like real things that Joe would not plan a 30th birthday party. First of all, I can't believe she's only 30. Melissa?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, segue. I don't believe that he would plan a 30th birthday party for her in Arizona where they're going to, like, meditate. And they touched upon this. We'll get to this, but the second part of the reunion, they did a whole thing about Arizona and how they're not very zen. And so that's another example as to why I feel like this argument was being pushed to close when it's probably never going to end, and it may be a feud they'll have for the rest of their lives, but for TV purposes, we're over it. You know what I mean? And I feel
I've been over it, though.
That's what I'm saying.
I was excited for this season initially because I thought we had been through this the last 2 seasons prior, so I thought the season 3, okay, I was a little questioning why we had the same Housewives on, but I figured, all right, well, like, they've, it got really, really bad to the point, like, got like really bad where like no one was speaking. I thought it was going to hit a reset button and we get like a new show.
Right.
But it was just picked right back up.
Like New York, you thought it was going to kind of, but that's what, again, I brought that up before. I feel like New York got really gross and nasty, and they did. They hit a reset button. They got rid of like the people that the arguments weren't ending. The reunion shows were horrible in a way that it was, I mean, they were dramatic and they were interesting to watch, but they were like making these women, in my opinion, very hard to even like or relate to at this point. It was just like, oh, you're being really disgusting. They hit the reset button. They brought in some new girls for New York. And so you're saying that's what you thought they were going to do here. And they didn't.
I didn't think they were. Once I saw it was the same cast, I was like, okay, but maybe it's a different dynamic. Maybe it's not going to be like the same exact like pick up where we left off, like a soap opera, like end on a Friday, pick up on a Monday. And that's kind of how it was.
That is.
There really wasn't anything fresh. Now, who should make their exit? Whose last reunion is it? Do we hope?
Okay. I feel like Caroline for sure is done.
She's pretty checked out.
I mean, I feel like she's done. I do, you know, I mean, there's no way Teresa would want to leave, but I don't know that they're going to be able to. We don't know what's going to happen with all the indictments. We don't know.
Well, they have till February. You know, she doesn't go to trial until February. So if they're picking up, it depends when they're going to start production.
It depends when
There's been rumors that they picked up like as soon as like to
get something out of it. Yeah.
Like, supposedly it's already happening, but nothing's confirmed. I mean, you know, anyone listening to this knows that Kathy is, you know, my first choice to go. She said not more than 2 sentences to this reunion.
Right.
I don't have a personal problem with her. I just don't think she should be on the show.
You don't think there's enough going on there?
She's incredibly boring. If you watch the other Housewives, there a lot more of them are very dynamic, and they have a lot of things going on the side, and they're very much involved in the big storyline.
Well, she has her cannolis.
And well, she can enjoy those as a friend of the Housewives. Okay, we can see her like once a month.
But I think that her saving grace is Rosie.
Well, yeah, I know, and everyone says that, but you don't need one with the other. Just put Rosie has this relationship with Joe, so she can make an appearance.
Now she does, but I don't know that. I think that her opening into this group, yeah, she's obviously related to Teresa, but I feel like her that was her opening, and they're kind of a trio, those three, and I don't know. I mean, Kathy doesn't bother me as much as she bothers you. I get what you're saying. There's not a lot of drama behind her, but maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they like that she's sort of like the level-headed, grounded one. She sort of, it's if there were too much drama happening, maybe it would be like too much.
Here's my theory on this. I watched Wendy Williams, and here's what she said.
What is her thing? Oh, what is she saying?
How you doing? Yeah.
How you doing?
And so here's her thought. She's saying that some of these families, especially on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, which she was referring to, are very much very wholesome or like good. They're good people, like the Manzo family, like it's a good family. But when it comes to people viewing, this is exactly my opinion. That's why I'm saying this. Is like when you look at people, when you look at these shows, you don't really necessarily want to see all of these people that come from these great backgrounds and are so like, you know, thick as thieves and everything is so great and wonderful. You like the train wrecks, and it's okay to admit as a viewer that of reality TV that sometimes you like to be down with the rest of everybody else. You don't need to be with like, you know, these highbrow people for the sake of being good people. They're not really, they shouldn't be in that world of reality TV. Okay. And that's how I view it. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be there, but for the dynamic of the Real Housewives and what it is and what it's based in, with all these catty fights and all these backgrounds, it's better to see people, someone like Kenya Moore in Atlanta, who's just crazy, who I love, or you know, like, I'm not saying Kim D should be a housewife, but people like that are, you know, a little bit, you know, they're not so highbrow. And that's so okay. Saying, that's what it is. You're saying, so for the sake of the show and just wanting to, you know, let loose and watch some drama, the people like Kathy Wakili or even Caroline Manzo at this point, you feel like it's just not good enough TV? No, I mean, I think they're fine people, and I just don't think that they need to be on reality TV. They're good enough. Yeah. You know, like they're just you see what I'm saying? I get what you're saying. You just feel like it's not good TV, and this is TV, and yes, it's reality, if you will, but. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to see them get, you know, roped into things as well. You know, people start off good and then they go crazy once they hit, especially the Housewives. We've seen a lot of people, you know, go off the rails a little bit. So, I mean, these are good people. You know, we've seen them, and it's good to have a good balance and everything. But It lacks.
So your vote for exit of a housewife would be Kathy.
Yeah, it's an ensemble show. You can't have a weak link when you've got 5 women who have to push a big show for it. And this is a big show.
I agree, and I think that what my thought was was they were trying to achieve a balance there with a Kathy and with a Caroline. I mean, Caroline's like a classic. She's an original, so they can't. But I mean, I think they all have their downfalls. You get used to seeing certain people. I want to almost say characters, but they're people. I mean, like we even talked about Grant. Like we're a little sick of watching Jacqueline cry.
The whole time she's like, I wish I had a tissue.
I know.
But the whole time she's just like dabbing her eyes through every coming up preview.
Her voice is always so warbly. It's like, just take a deep breath.
Can she quit crying for 5 minutes on that show?
It is a little, and Caroline sometimes there's a lot of advice that gets spewed out of her. And she's very well spoken, and I think she has a very articulate way of expressing her feelings, and she does hit the nail on the head a lot. But again, it's like, okay, here comes, advice from Caroline, and then Teresa's always stumbling over her words and saying the stupidest stuff, which we'll touch on what she said at the end. And
it's so clear now that when Caroline speaks to Teresa, she doesn't have any expectations or respect for that woman at all.
Yeah,
she doesn't listen to her.
She's done.
Like she doesn't listen to her like other people, like she would somebody else. Like it's really obvious. It's a little disrespectful. I mean, say what you want about Teresa. I can understand why Caroline has to have a lot of patience.
Right.
But it's just to the point where she doesn't even these are both adults, and it just
so
comes
you don't
across.
like the way Caroline has.
Well, it's a little disrespectful, I think.
I honestly feel like.
No, I'm not saying. Let's just be real clear. I'm not saying that Caroline isn't just in stuff she's saying. She's not. She's not talking out of her behind for sure.
Yeah.
But just the way that she talks to Teresa differently, the way she'll talk to somebody else, like Kathy.
I agree, and I feel like it's because she checked out. I feel like Caroline is just like, you know what, I'm not even going to indulge in this anymore. Yeah, I'll talk about it for the sake of discussing the point. But she is like, and she even said it at the end of the reunion today. She said, you are not an enemy. I have no animosity. I literally just cannot. I mean, it's just
You're somebody I used to know.
You're somebody I used to know. And I think that's 100% how she comes off. And to be honest with you, I don't blame her.
No, yeah. I don't know. I would be okay, though, if she stuck around for season 6.
Who, Teresa?
No, Caroline.
Oh, Caroline? Oh, you would want her?
I'd be okay with her being
I would be fine with her, too. I just...
Yeah.
And you never know if they do bring on somebody else, what that one person will bring out in other people and change the dynamics or their involvement in the show or as a cast together. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what they need, yeah.
Exactly what they need. So one person could switch that up a little, which I think we're all in agreement here that they need.
Yes. A season ago they needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's time.
So this part 2 of this reunion started with the take-backs. Andy Cohen was asking them if they could take stuff back, what would it be? And, Rosie said she would... saying that Teresa should take it up the ass, and Joe Giudice said he, felt bad about calling people names like Melissa Horsey Face.
See, I feel like they asked this question 3 times.
Yeah.
I saw on the part 1. Then I was watching some clips on the Bravo app, BravoTV.com, whatever. And then and then tonight they asked that again. And actually, no, I'm saying 4 because towards the end they said the same thing. They asked the same thing. They're like, well, what would you do different?
Yeah.
And it's the same question. It's do you have any regrets? What would you change?
I think that that's just the way that they either can stir up something, which it did, because Teresa then said something that stirred a whole new problem up. So I think that question is loaded for sure. And yeah, they're going to rephrase it as many ways as they can to see if they can get somebody to...
My guess is that this was... they're always notorious for being a long day. But there's probably very little content in between what we saw. And so they probably had to keep stirring the pot just to, to keep the conversation moving.
I think that that's a good point, Grant. And I also feel like the reason why that is the case is because the really juicy stuff, it's like they almost can't talk about it really. Like when you start to get into the Teresa and Joe Giudice stuff, it's like there's only so much they can say. And they're also all very, very careful about reliving things. How many times did we hear them during this reunion be like, I don't really want to talk about about that anymore? Aren't we done with that? And I feel like there's no gray area anymore. It's just like, yeah, we'll relive this. We're sick of talking about it, and it's also just going to bring us back to where we don't want to be. So let's just, and Dr. V came in and the last part of the first part of the reunion and last episode, and she touched on trying to help them figure out how to maintain the things that they've learned, because you can teach somebody something and you can do it, but it has to keep happening in order for these relationships to get better. And so that I thought that was like a nice thing for her to leave them with that piece of advice that they could keep.
She seemed pretty proud of them. What did you think of that?
What do you mean?
I think Dr. V seemed pretty proud of the point that they got to, even though things aren't resolved. She's like, she even said it's going to take baby steps, but
I think yes. I think that also people in her position, I'm going to guess. I don't know what her clinical position is. If she's a psychiatrist,
I think she's a relationship therapist,
an MFT or something. But I feel like they have to be very encouraging, and any little step is like, let's commend for that, because you need to feel like a change is happening in order to keep going. Otherwise, you have no incentive. So I think that her position is to be very encouraging, and I do think that it was a small step they took, but I think her pride in that, if you will, was more for them. Like, let's encourage you guys to keep doing that.
There was a comment on YouTube, and forgive me, I don't remember the person's name, but they said, why doesn't anyone ask Melissa to make apologies? It's always Teresa apologizing. Do you think Dr. V, looking at the reunion alone, kind of gave her a pass?
I feel like Dr. V, I feel like that's a true statement, that Melissa gets off on stuff like this a lot, but I will say that I think that she dissects their problems in the situations that they manifest themselves through, which is, maybe some rumors that are coming out, or maybe how Teresa, I can't talk, lashes out. And I feel like what she's generally trying to say is, this is an overall problem that you have, and this is how it manifests itself. So Teresa happens to have a huge problem with taking responsibility for things she does. So I feel like she is under the microscope a little bit more than Melissa, because this is not just like, let's fix this problem. It's let's fix why this problem keeps happening. And Teresa, it's always the same stuff, and everyone calls her out on the same stuff every time. Like, just admit when you're wrong. Say sorry. Stop lashing out. Her way to deal with problems is very immature, and so I feel like she does get the spotlight on her and her issues a little more than Melissa, because, Melissa does things wrong as well. She's not perfect, but Teresa, like I said, I feel like has a general issue of just dealing with things incorrectly.
I feel like for every one thing Melissa did, like congratulations on your newly redone home, remember that card? Like, for every one thing Melissa gets away with, Teresa does two in return.
Exactly.
And so, it's
fair that
both should be, called to the carpet. But Melissa,
they did this reunion more than any reunion in the whole Housewives franchise that I've ever watched. They swallowed their pride a lot this one. They said, sorry, I'm sorry for that. And they seemed genuine-ish.
It wasn't a damaging reunion. I feel like people can walk out of there and didn't really change anything when they walked in.
I know. That's interesting that you say that, too, because I feel like I have watched reunion shows where I'm like, oh, man, that person's off the show now. Like, they're not coming back. Like, Jill, Zarin, and Bethany Frankel, those reunion shows were... I mean, you were like, they're done. Oh, man. Like,
well, I felt that about Real Housewives of Orange County reunion previously this year, that it kind of, not that people would be leaving, but that it just really changed, like that one evening changed the whole dynamic. And they, Andy joked that they were supposed to go out to dinner afterwards, and no one wanted to go out to dinner with any of them.
Gretchen, they're all like up in arms about her. Like, that's the new target right there. So anyway.
Back to New
Jersey. But there's just they're all, we have to touch on the fact that this happens a lot with all of the shows.
It's the franchise, and it's common. It's just how it goes.
It's just how it works. Like I said, they were talking about the take-backs. I do want to touch on, they all kind of said that they were sorry for name calling and things like that. But the one thing that sticks out in my mind that we have to wrap up here is that Joe Giudice calling Teresa the C word. I cannot stand, I know they talked about it at the reunion for last season and they brought it up again, but I think the reason why it keeps getting brought up is because there are their discussion about it is so, it makes zero sense, and so nobody's satisfied with the answer.
Yeah.
They always say, and Joe Gorga said to Teresa, well, my husband doesn't call me the C word, and she's like, well, he didn't say it to my face. I am sorry, but where is the logic
Just
in that?
on national television, behind your back. That's better,
behind
right?
your back, on the phone with clearly somebody that he's sleeping with, and your defense... Allegedly, clearly that he's sleeping with, okay? Yeah. Or something extramarital is going on, in my opinion. That is my opinion. And he calls her the C word, and her defense is, he didn't say it to my face. This is the problem that I have with Teresa, that she can never just be like, you know what? That was wrong of him to do, and we dealt with it in our own private way.
Yeah, but she kind of said that out of the other corner of her mouth, because it came out like previously that he bought her jewelry, and like Angie was talking about it when she was on What Happens Live.
Yeah.
That, you know, it was some tense times in the house, and he made it up. You know, it cost him a lot. That was a big mistake, costly.
That's what I'm saying. Why can't she? But why in these situations does she not just own up to a mistake? It bothers me so bad. It makes her like not human, and it makes me not relate to her or feel sorry for her in any way when she just.
Well, you can't put it all on her, because he was sitting there too and was like, "Oh, I never used that word in my life."
Right.
So I sometimes call her a biatch. I'm like,
yeah. All
right, we're going from like a really bad word to like a name that I used in 6th grade.
Exactly. So, it's like PG to R-rated or X-rated or whatever. I agree. It can't just all be her. I'm just saying it's another example of the things that bother me about her. And when we were talking about Dr. V and her trying to help them maintain this relationship, I think that's the general problem with Teresa. It's the lack of responsibility or even awareness. Like, are we all that dumb that we are going to be like, oh, well, he didn't say it to her face, so that's totally fine. No? Like, what are you talking about? It's like worse that he didn't say it to your...
When it comes to Teresa, there's just some things they'll never be resolved. They'll never be spoken about real. They'll never be mapped out in black and white.
Which is, I think, why there's so much controversy around her, because she's on this reality TV show, and she constantly has this mask on, like, no, it's fine, he didn't say it to my face. Like, there's no way you can work around that. Just say he effed up and he apologized and we are moving on from it. If she would just say that, I mean, she touched on it. It sounds
like that's what happened anyway. So why doesn't she just say it?
But that's what I'm saying. It makes people keep asking when she denies that it almost like it even happened to me, whatever. So anyway, then we moved on to the Arizona trip, which we all thought was like a very boring part of the season. So of course they had to bring it up because they took like 3 episodes there or something. And you know, Rosie, we got some information that Rosie quit smoking. And she felt that trip was very life-changing for her, which was nice. I like that she felt like she, felt not good enough in the past, and that trip made her feel like validated. Like, she is a good person and she deserves to be happy. And she's working out with Joe Giudice. And then we saw this nice moment between Rosie and Joe. They called it a Joe-mance. They got up and hugged, and that was nice. That part of this reunion was nice for me because we were getting information that we weren't just rehashing. We found out some new stuff about Rosie, and then we got to see that they didn't really focus on the relationship with Rosie and Joe too much.
Well, in the first part, we did see some clips.
We saw some stuff, but I didn't realize how emotional that was going to be when they got up and hugged. They touched on it a little, but because we were so distracted by all the other BS that happened, we didn't get to really see that blossom as much as we did in that moment. I thought that was nice.
I think they're a good combo. A good pair, yeah. One thing I want to talk about, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is when they were in Arizona, Teresa put in her blog in that episode that Caroline was miserable the whole time, and all she and Al did was fight. And then, this was in part 1. We saw things go back and forth. We should really cover this and give our thoughts about it, because it was a blatant lie, because Teresa was hurt. Yeah. But it all comes down to these blogs, and
which is just such an out. Like, to me, it's a cowardly way to discuss a problem. It's like when a guy wants to ask you on a date and he texts it to you. It's like, ask me to my face. Yeah, Martin, that's what I said. Ask me to my face or call me, but don't blog or write. The safety net of the computer screen in front of you is stupid to me, and that was ridiculous. And Teresa, that is a total summation, and look at me pointing my finger, how heated I am, of how she works and why she is an annoying person.
Those blogs are so freaking passive aggressive. If I was on one of these shows, which I would probably like to do, I would not ever want to have one of those blogs because it could never help things. And you're on a show with this season, and it was all about this healing, and then you give people the power of the computer screen, where they can write and say whatever they want.
The safety net of the computer screen.
Yeah, I mean, so. It's so pointless.
I wonder,
it undoes everything. It's just really, it's so,
it does.
It's
and
really
it keeps
backwards.
things going.
And I think it's a low point.
Okay, I agree.
Network.
Let me say something. I personally think that Teresa, I'm not going to bag on her too much, but I don't think she's an intelligent enough person. She has her moments of how she's smart in her own way. Not everyone's a genius about everything. I'm not claiming that. But I don't think that she's an intelligent enough person to say, I want to create a blog and start talking about my personally, I feel like whose idea was it that all these housewives start blogs?
Well, there's a lot of speculation that Teresa doesn't even write her own, that she has a ghostwriter and she gives her notes. Like this network of housewives that
I guarantee you she doesn't. Right. But I'm saying, who was the mastermind behind get these women to start blogging, because that's exactly what it does. It makes things, it stirs the problems up again. It keeps them going.
It's a feature on BravoTV.com.
That's what I'm saying. So that was pushed. I'm not saying that Teresa's like, you know what, I really want to be a blogger. I don't think she...
Right, yeah.
All this stuff is pushed on her, and she probably does have a ghostwriter.
Nothing good can come of that. I would refuse. I really would.
Well, but Grant... You really think these women are going to look what they're on? They're not going to refuse this stuff. And then
I'm not saying refuse the show, but I mean doing a blog. I don't know. No, nothing good can come of it.
I know, but you have a moral compass.
I guess
some of these women don't.
I mean, I'd love to start a little drama. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not one to do it behind a computer screen. I'm not passive aggressive. That I'm not.
I'm just saying. I feel like I mean. That was wrong, Teresa, and they called her out on it. Caroline called her out on it. She's like, look, you can't, if you're offended by something I say, you can't just turn around and make up a lie about me and my husband fighting. Oh, well, that's what I heard. That's what she said. Who did you hear that from, first of all? Who is talking about Caroline and Albert on this private trip that only you guys are at? And to me, it was just so stupid that Caroline, again, articulated her feelings very well and was like, look, that was dumb. You don't just bam me with a lie. And Dr. V touched on it too. She said that's not cool. And I like that Dr. V does that. Yeah. I like that she's like, yeah, Teresa, you can't lash out like that.
You're an idiot.
She said that was what'd she say? She said, and she called her out on it at the Adirondacks too. She said that's like shitty. Or she said
that's
something.
What she said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I like that she. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. And we commented last week that Caroline's facial expressions really said it all. And this time, in the second part, it seemed like someone was turning up the flame on her because she was just getting ready to boil over. They kept cutting to her, and she was from the beginning to the end, and she did at the end. She had the final meltdown.
Well, why would you not? In that moment. Teresa, again, I mean, it's like this is the problem with her. They get so far in resolving an issue. I feel like I have hair sticking out all over the place, right? It keeps getting
Get it together over there.
I'm like, I can't. It's making me angry.
I would say this season made me tired. This made you crazy.
This part, Teresa in particular, kind of drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Caroline had every right to blow up at the end because they get so far. It's like they take all these steps and then she harps on some stupid thing that's like, of all the things to be mad at, you don't give a crap that your husband called you the C word, but you're going to harp on Caroline getting mad at you because you made a lie up about, I mean,
and because Caroline called her superficial.
And if Melissa called her the C word, there's no way she would be like, well, she didn't say it to my face, so I don't care. It's like all you talk about is how she talks about behind your back. I mean, to me, it just makes zero sense.
Anyway, I was thinking about this in traffic. I give this show a lot of thought.
We have lots of traffic in LA,
we have too much. I was thinking of a tagline. Anyway, so, and I was thinking about this, and Caroline really has done a lot for that family, and she's really sat through a lot. She went all the way up there to the Adirondacks, and I mean, she really gave it too much attention. And she doesn't have any horse in that race. She's not in that family. So, I mean, no one ever said thank you to her for anything.
I know.
I don't know if she really needs to be told thank you, but
it would
be
nice.
She doesn't need to have backlash like she has. I mean,
exactly.
It's so disrespectful.
I agree.
It's so unnecessary.
I agree. So, they touched on the Arizona trip. They touched on the fact that Teresa made that lie up about Caroline and Albert. And then also Joe Giudice and his emotions about what has been brought out in the indictments and the DMV case and all of that stuff. And this is the side of Joe that we're seeing throughout the season. We keep talking about it, that he's, vulnerable and scared. And it's so much more nice to watch him, and even Teresa in her very few and far in between moments, admit they're wrong or scared or vulnerable, instead of just acting like both of them act like nothing's ever, oh no, everything's fine. And it's not real, and it makes you check out. So I don't know if you did, I liked seeing Joe have those moments of, it's sad, I feel bad for them. I'm not saying I want to see him sad, but I like seeing something real, as opposed to I'm in denial and this is not a problem and we're just going to brush it off. I mean, he looked like such a dick, excuse me, before. And I think now, I feel like when Caroline says Teresa likes nice things and Joe would be fine living in a cardboard box, that would have never made sense to me until this season. I would never have believed that, because he seemed like such a jerk to me, that he seemed like he didn't care at all about how she felt, or about Teresa. I mean, every time she brought up stuff with her brother, he would be like, "Oh, who cares, tree? I don't want to talk about a tree." And it's like, well, you're white, like he came off like chauvinistic and like piggish to me, and I don't think he's that way. So I'm glad I
agree. There has to be some redeeming quality to him.
Yeah.
I mean, Teresa really does love him, and she talks about what a great man he is and what a great husband and father. So there has to be another side. And all these women and spouses and featured friends of Housewives are all painted in a certain light.
For sure. We have a caller right now.
Oh, fantastic.
So let's patch that in. Ooh. We're working on it. Oh,
okay.
Hello. Hi.
Thanks for calling in. What's your name?
My name is Sydney.
Hi, Sydney. How are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Oh, thanks for calling. What's going on? What are you thinking? What do you want to talk about?
Wait, is this Marvin from America's Next Top Model?
Oh, no. You know what? This is the Real Housewives of New Jersey.
We're in Jersey.
We're like, hey, do you watch the show?
That's the only one I don't watch.
Oh, no. Darn it. Well, you're missing a good show, honey, because we are talking about the reunion here, and it was good. Right. But thank you for watching AfterBuzz. Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV, though. Sorry that you got patched into the wrong show.
Oh, God, it's okay.
All right, well, have
a good
fun.
night.
Yeah, have a good night. Bye. Oh, man.
I know, I was
like, who wants to talk about I thought someone was going to be like, you need to chill out on Teresa, girlfriend.
I know, we could be called out. What would we do?
Speaking of AfterBuzz TV, though, and all of our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening, and thank you for going on iTunes and rating and commenting and telling a friend and keeping the conversation going.
And thanks for being a loyal listener through the whole season, through the ups and downs, and and even our little changes in the seats here.
I know, right?
Everyone's being very loyal.
Yeah, and the shows like this are so interesting to talk about because there's so many topics and so much going on. Mm-hmm. So we like watching the show. Even during the show, we're talking about it. We know you guys probably are too at home. So we appreciate that you're tweeting and commenting and calling in and keeping the convo going. And while you're on iTunes, rating and commenting about how much you love our show, 5 stars, pick up a copy of Serial Buddies, which is the movie that Maria Menounos is in. And, there's other Kathy Lee Gifford, Christopher Lloyd. If you like drama, there's a little drama in that film, and I'm assuming that you like drama if you're watching this show. So pick up a copy of Serial Buddies. Well. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. iTunes, Serial Buddies. Bam. So anyway, so back to Arizona and all that stuff, and Joe Giudice and admitting vulnerability. I liked it. It humanizes him, and we needed to see that.
Right.
So that was good that they did that. And they also touched, we need to talk about Albert and his dad. Holy manoli, I didn't know that there was talk about the mafia. That is so interesting to me.
I know. I think I heard something about that early on in this whole series they were that family was tied to dirty money or something. But it was an allegedly rumor. Do you believe it?
Well, of course it's a rumor. Nobody's ever going to admit that they're in the mafia.
Well, I know what I'm covering. I'm saying it was out there as a rumor.
It was out there as a rumor.
There's no, we don't know any facts.
No, and there was never, right. And Caroline backed that up. She said, Albert is a hardworking man. He got the brownstone from his father at a very young age. And it disgusts her to think that people alleged that they are laundering money or whatever, or doing illegal things, that what they have is fair and, from working fair and square. But I am Italian. My last name is Leonelli, and my grandmother and grandfather had an Italian friend that was a neighbor, and my brother and I swore that this guy was in the mafia. We're always like, tell us if he's in the mafia. And they're like, oh, geez, he's not in the mafia. But my grandmother did say one time, stuff like this really goes on. She's like, I don't know if I know anybody in the mafia, but my friend's father was killed on the church steps on Easter Sunday. So, I mean, it's like, when stuff like that happens, you're like, well, I mean, you don't have to say you're in the mafia, but you get shot on the church steps at Easter Sunday, and let's take a wild guess here. I think we could read between the lines.
Yeah, no, I have a similar story. I don't want to get into it. Not with my family, but yeah.
Well, that wasn't my family. It was her friend. But her friend, no. But this story, we don't have the details on Caroline, but I'm saying if you read between the lines, they don't know how the father died. They got the knock on the door at 4:30. I'm assuming he was killed. Yeah. And which is horrible, but in Caroline doesn't like talking about it because of all of it. I'm sure it was a horrible thing to live through, and because of the story that she expressed about her birthday and Albert, and how I'm sure it was heartbreaking. But I think it's interesting that they don't want to know anything about it. And I think, like I'm saying, if something weird and sketchy happens like that, you could read between the lines, and that's probably why people think there is ties to the mafia, because you hear stories like getting shot on the church steps on Easter Sunday, and you can't help but think, what the... Yeah, right?
You know, they just wanted to let it die along with his father.
I get it. I totally get it. I'm just saying I think that's why people question. I didn't know.
Right. I see what you're saying.
I am a loyal Housewives fan. I did not know that story until... I don't know how that passed me up, but I did not know that story until today.
Yeah, well, I'd like to believe that there's no truth in it, because now, like, here starts all the speculation and rumors, and like who like is privately like giving like a comment about what they might know, and it's just, I almost wish they didn't bring it up for their own sake, because it's old. They clearly don't want to get involved with it. It's clearly put behind them a long time ago, and it's just it's kind of not good that it came up, because now here it starts.
But I think Caroline did a good job putting it to bed.
I hope so.
I think she's a good at doing that. And like I said, I'm a loyal viewer, and I didn't know that, or at least I forgot about it. So it was interesting to hear. And she explained why it's not something that she wants to indulge in, and I totally get it. But we do need to touch on, towards the end, how this is another tidbit of information that I'm, realizing that they did let us in on some things that they weren't just rehashing. There were new things here. I didn't know that Joe Gorga and Melissa Gorga took the girls, Melania and Gabriella and all of them out in that incident where, Joe Gorga said Gabriella was attached to him all night long, and Melissa, just looking at that, made her very emotional, and they both cried. I didn't know that. I like hearing those inside stories, because clearly they don't catch everything on camera. So it's nice to know about those things that.
Now, when they were going over the 39 counts, Melissa said that she was really sad for them, and she just really didn't want to talk about it. And you made a comment that you really weren't, necessarily buying into all of it.
I don't.
No.
I don't. I think that Melissa and Teresa are so damaged that I think that there's just a wall up there. And I do believe that Melissa is sad for the girls, and that's about as far as it goes. That's just my opinion. I mean, I don't think she's heartless and doesn't care about Teresa and Joe at all. I'm sure she thinks it's sad, but I don't think that her emotion lies within really feeling like Teresa.
But to be real, though, I think a lot of people feel that way, because not a lot of people. They don't lift the faults of those two. This is a federal investigation. There's clearly something, they were involved, the two of them, where they wouldn't be facing these charges. But the problem is, and we have this with our readers, we hear this with our readers, it's still a family, and so I understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
It's the kids, and that's it.
And that is the sad part of it, really, truly, is those children. So, of course, that's going to get anybody.
But Melissa knows these two on a very personal level.
Yeah, but I'm not saying she doesn't have any emotion about it. I'm saying that most of the emotion lies within the sadness for the children, and she even said that.
Well,
I'm not saying she doesn't care at all about Teresa and Joe. I just don't believe the tears are for them. I believe that they're more for the kids.
Well, I think that's around the table, though. Even Jacqueline. Sure. Even Jacqueline. I'm sure she has more invested in Teresa.
But I believe Jacqueline is scared for Teresa, and I'm not saying that Melissa isn't. I also just think that Melissa, there's probably a part of her that feels like she doesn't really believe that Teresa and Joe are innocent, and so if this happens, then it happens.
I don't think anybody does, though.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're already like feel like you are around this person who constantly places blame on people, starts problems, doesn't take responsibility for anything, and lies about stuff and denies things, why would you feel bad for somebody getting caught in all of that turmoil? I think she.
Well,
I think
it's bigger. I know it's bigger than a petty argument.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that. And they talk about karma here, and Teresa doesn't believe in karma, but to me that's just a BS excuse because she uses the term before, and I don't really, to me, again, that's just her not taking responsibility for anything or just making up a lie so she can make herself sound like she makes sense, but really all it does is just make you not trust her. And I don't think that you can have a lot of sympathy for somebody in her situation. Yes, the petty arguments are what happens between them, but Teresa, that's how she lives her life. She denies things happening. She seems like she goes about things in a dishonest way. And so maybe karmically, this is what's happening. They brought that up. Look, I feel bad for them too, and their girls. And I'm not saying Melissa doesn't. I'm not in her brain. I'm just saying I feel like she doesn't really like Teresa. And she probably is like deep down inside, like it might be shitty, excuse my French, but you get what you deserve. And it sucks. It sucks. It sucks. And she feels bad. And I'm sure she would never wish them to go to jail. But I feel like she's really just sad about the girls. That's what I feel like.
See, I feel she is. Maybe I'm thinking too much into this. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit. But I like to think that she doesn't have any feeling of like too bad.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, I hope that she.
Oh well, I think it's a little deeper than too bad. It's not just like, oh well, too bad. I just am saying.
I'm not saying that either.
If all these things did happen, like that's what goes around comes around. I don't know.
I don't know if she would feel that way. I don't know. I don't know her.
Yeah,
I don't know Melissa.
Who knows?
So.
I just don't believe that Melissa and Teresa are as nice to each other as they'd like people to let on to believe. That's all. And they're both guilty of it.
Yeah, so, I don't know the woman. I'm not going to speak.
Yeah,
she thinks in her mind.
Totally not. Again, here to preface, not saying that that's what she thinks. I'm saying that's what I read from what she was saying.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
The feeling.
That's the feeling I got, that she's really emotional about the children, and yes, maybe emotional about Joe and Teresa, but not as much.
What's always interested me with the show is the relationship that Joe and Teresa have with their parents, and how the parents really have very few appearances on the show. And this was brought up in the reunion, how especially they don't film with Joe, and the back and forth on how, and this has come up a couple times. So Joe believes his parents view him and Melissa as the devil. Yeah. And so what did you make of all this?
Well, I thought Teresa actually had a valid point for once in her life. Well, not for once, but it's just rare.
Yeah, go ahead.
That she said, look, we are parents, and that's not fair. Don't put me in the middle of it. As a parent, you should know that you can't pick between your kids. And I don't think that she calls them mommy and daddy are doing that. I could see why Joe would think that, because they do seem more chummy with Teresa and they do film with her. And I do think that Joe has a point saying that I believe that you told them the reason why we came on the show was to take you down. And I think Teresa does think that, because she said it. So that would make sense that she would relay to her mom and dad that they're poison and whatever. And I think that probably did happen. So I could see why he would be upset. But to bring them the mom and dad into it is almost like they kind of just dropped it at that point. Even Melissa said, don't bring them into it. And even Teresa said, look, don't make them choose. Right. So I think it's kind of...
I feel like that's a whole other unseen dynamic.
I think that's why they don't dive into it, because I feel like it's way too vast to even...
Melissa is the daughter-in-law that they really don't know. And so, of course, they're just going to, that's their daughter. Teresa is just going to trump anything being said. So that's like another whole thing that the Real Housewives cannot address.
It's too much to address. And
Dr. V is going to have to put in some overtime to deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, they just don't like each other. Teresa doesn't like Melissa. Melissa doesn't like Teresa. And that's just, I'm sorry, they just don't.
But I love you. You're my sister-in-law.
Yeah, BS. They don't like each other. I'm sorry, they don't. And then to wrap it all up, we think we're coming to this, lovely ending where they're, again, rehashing what would you do different. Of course, Andy's asking that question 500 times. And they all say, Melissa wishes she could have filmed more. First of all, why couldn't Melissa answer that question? Because she probably doesn't think she would have done anything different. She's dealing with Teresa the whole time, and she's still pissed at her. So I'm just saying, that's my point, is I don't feel like...
Well, Melissa's on that show, in my opinion, for other things other than healing this relationship. So if she, I mean, how much more can they say?
I know.
She really probably doesn't believe she did anything that she should be taken back.
That's what I'm saying.
She's checked out.
But then she ended up fabricating an answer or coming up with an answer that she wishes she would have filmed more with Teresa, whatever. You know, we hear Jacqueline saying that she wishes whatever. They're all kind of just apologizing for things. And then Teresa comes out and starts a whole mother effing problem again. And she's so annoying when she does this because it's like a child that can't get over the fact that her brother stole her pencil from her when they were doing homework. It's like, you have other things to worry about, honey. Let's move on. And furthermore, the fact that the problem is that she was telling Caroline that she was really hurt. It's like, how do you make sense out of the fact that you lied about Caroline and she's just reacting to your lie? And you're bringing that point up again, so you're just making yourself look guilty and like an idiot.
She cannot go up against Caroline. She has to cut it out.
It doesn't matter.
It's not going to happen.
It's not just Caroline, Grant. That was a stupid argument to rehash because Teresa is clearly wrong.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she's wrong with. She's been up against everybody on that show. I mean, she should know by now.
Well, that's my point.
Caroline,
she doesn't get it.
It's just not going to happen. She's not. Caroline isn't going to say, "Oh, you're right, Teresa. I thought about it."
Nobody should in that situation. Nobody should, but Caroline for sure wouldn't. And yeah, so we ended with now feeling like, you know, they're all trying to be friends, and it's great to see Jacqueline and Teresa back, and Melissa and Joe at least offering support to be there for whatever might happen to Teresa and Joe. It was nice to see Joe have a vulnerable side. It was nice to see Rosie come into the picture a little bit more. But we now know what we can take from this is that Caroline is like checked out with Teresa. She doesn't view her as an enemy, but she's also just like, you are somebody that I used to know. And so it makes you wonder what might happen next. Is Caroline going to be on the show? What's going to happen with Teresa and Joe? These are all things that we're going to wonder about until we see season 6.
All right. And you know who seems to be pretty good with everything is Jacqueline. She seems to be like back to where she was
crying and all
3 seasons ago. Yeah,
crying and all that. I feel like I don't want to see that turn into the same problem over again.
No, like I hope she learns something from it. I hope she doesn't you can let people back into your lives, but you can't accept them with full on open arms. Yeah.
You got to have a little bit of a,
But we commented on this throughout the season. She was real quick to just kind of like give Teresa that hug. She really was, especially in Arizona. I mean, she was really emotionally vulnerable with Teresa.
Very, very much so. And it's nice to see that at least she feels like she resolved the problem in her own way. But I just hope that it doesn't come back to bite her in the ass and that this problem doesn't keep just recycling itself because I feel like it does that. And hopefully she holds her at an arm's length and they can move on from this. But Teresa clearly has a hard time not rehashing stuff. So maybe it will happen again next season. I don't know. But we do have some... Well, maybe we'll save it for the end, our housewife taglines, but we do have a little bit of news and gossip, right?
All right, yeah, let's do that.
Let's do some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So we've said a lot on the show about speculating about if the show is like overproduced, how real it is, and so a report came out on Gossip Cop, and they interviewed Rosie, and Rosie made sure she set the record straight that she is real. She is a real person. She's not putting any fronts on, and I think it's obvious. Yeah. And she said, "I get asked, was that set up?" And I'm like, no, that was not set up. This is reality TV, she told Gossip Cop. And she's continued to say, and what you see on there for me is what you get. And I'm not different from the screen, on the screen than I am in real life. And she just goes on to mention like how like her and Kathy are like the realist, and that it's exactly a mirror image.
At least she's speaking for herself. I believe that with her for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, for someone who's on it, she went to that posh event and everything, to say that it's all real, I mean, I still have my speculations.
Of course, everybody does. But I mean, I do believe that she's speaking for herself and that she is very real and genuine. So I believe that for that.
And there's like this lost footage coming up on Monday regarding this Real Housewives on Bravo. And
they're calling it... not lost footage, but they're calling it the Real Housewives of New Jersey tell-all, right?
Yeah.
So there's like some, and we will be tuning into that. We aren't covering it here, but we'll be watching, and when they come back next season, we'll.
On that tell-all, there's a scene at this posh event where Jan gets in a fight with Kim D, and it is one to watch because it is so fake. I mean, it is like if you put two bad actors in a room and you try to have them like improvise, and it really got gross because they were like commenting on like how they parent kids, and then one of them like touched the other one. She's like, "Don't touch me, don't touch me," and like they cut to a shot of Caroline, and Caroline was just like rolling her eyes. Like it's so fake. It's so camera hungry. It's disgusting.
It obviously hit the cutting room floor for a reason, and I did to touch on for a second. Think it was funny that Andy Cohen tricked them at one point and was like, Kim G, come out.
No, that's
Dina Manzo, and they're like,
I don't know how our listeners feel, but that's the reunion I want to see. I want to see Danielle come down the staircase and Kim G trot out and start telling people off. That's what I want to see. Watch
the women tell all, and next season maybe we'll have some interesting things to talk about. We're not going to, we can predict. Let's predict some things.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Okay, well, I know we're both predicting that we feel like there's going to be a change of character, and you think that...
I think Kathy's going to be a friend of a housewife, and Rosie, and they're still going to be really, in the canvas of everything, because they have Melissa, Joe, and Teresa, and so they'll be at the events, and that's good enough.
I predict that they're filming. Teresa's going to be involved in the next season because they're going to try and squeeze it in before anything happens. I don't know enough about her indictments to say if I think that they're going to get put in jail. I hope for the sake of their children that they don't. So I can't predict anything on that real life situation, but let's hope for the best in that situation. But I do feel like Caroline is checked out, and I think if we do see Teresa in this next season, and they are filming now like we suspect, I think that there might be another problem with her and Jacqueline because I just think the same stuff happens over and over again. And I hope for a new housewife.
Well, I predict that new housewife is going to be Dina because the show is so much around family. They're not going to introduce somebody new. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe they're going to pull somebody in. It's going to be someone that has to be connected to one of these core family members.
And now that they're done with this Gorga Giudice family problem, they're going to bring in the Manzo thing again, maybe. So we'll see about that. Also, let's talk about what was your housewife tagline, Grant? Because we said we were going to do this all season. Tweet us your housewife tagline. But Grant, what's yours?
All right, I said, life is short. I have no time for second chances and second impressions.
I like that. Mine would be, I'm a nice girl, but I have a fiery side. Spill a drink on me, and it's on.
Very Housewives. Very Housewives.
All right, tweet us your housewife taglines because we would love to see what you have to say. And thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching all season. It was a long one.
Yes.
We talked about a lot, and we hope that you come back for next season. We will, I'm sure, be covering season 6 to see all what the drama and the new housewives and what new problems occur because, these housewives are drama, and that's what we like here.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to have any less
lack
drama.
of drama, for sure.
For sure.
I am your host, Lauren Leonelli. You can find me at Lauren Leonelli on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Vine, and my website.
All right, and I'm Grant Rutter, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at GrantMichaelR.
All right, guys. See you next season. Thanks so much. Bye.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.